Hey, what's up, guys? Rare Bishop here, and for those who are actually subscribed and have been trying to keep up lately, I know it's been a good long while since I've done a video review, but I'm trying to get back in the swing of things. Going to try to post some more reviews. I know I've said that before in the past, but I'm going to try to actually post some stuff up here in the near future. And right now, I'm going to do one for a rhythm shooter called Aaero, or it could be pronounced Aaero. It is spelled A-A-E-R-O. Developed by Mad Fellows Games. They call it a rhythm rail shooter because essentially, as you'll see in the gameplay, I have a little bit of movement, but it's not free movement. I'm not allowed to move all over the screen. There is a certain, vicinity where I can go to, and as the level starts out, you'll see that I start out shooting enemies, and you'll move around with the right stick to do that. I should say that you move the actual ship with the left stick, you move the cursor, which you'll see pop on the screen, with the right stick. And when you're not actually trying to shoot an enemy, the cursor will fade away, so it's not in your screen, it's not intrusive, it doesn't get in your way. And they do a good job of when I actually go onto the tracks, which is why they call it a rail shooter. When you go onto the tracks of the actual beat of the song, you move the ship onto that. It reminds me a little bit of DJ Hero, except instead of using a turntable to move on the screen, you move a ship up and down, the waves. And most of the time, this is when you get to advanced and master difficulty, when you're shooting the enemies, they won't pop up as you are on the beats, as you're on the actual music track. That only comes into play on the later difficulty, so they don't try to mix it up too much, especially early on. They kind of introduce you into a good way. The tutorial does a good job. So as I said, you start out in this level in particular, you start out shooting enemies, and then you move on to the actual the music tracks, which you move your ship with left stick. Like I said, you shoot with your right stick, and you pull right trigger to actually fire. And that's really the only thing you do in the game. It's not overly complicated, but at the same time, you think, oh, it's simplistic. You can kind of get in there and kind of hammer away and get some high scores. It's a little bit difficult, especially when you're first starting out, because you have to figure out exactly when to shoot. There's a pattern and a strategy to how you shoot. If you use the right stick to aim and you use the right trigger, if you do it on the beat of the song, you'll get a higher score. If you do it on offbeat, what'll happen is it'll take longer for those bullets or those projectiles to hit the enemy, and you'll get less points. So they kind of incentivize you to listen, wear headphones, make sure you're paying attention to the beat of the song, and try to hit those enemies that way. And I will say that there are about 12 to 15 songs in the game from various artists, kind of EDM, kind of electronics type music. But the songs themselves are actually pretty good, because we all know when it comes to a rhythm game, it all comes down, you can have great gameplay, but if you don't have a good soundtrack, if you don't have good music, people may not stay very long. It may fall flat for them. And the songs that they picked, although some of them may not have words in them, the gameplay itself and the music combine together to make a very good experience for you. And the gameplay, like I said, it seems like it's simplistic. You seem like you can kind of get in there and nail that stuff immediately. But it kind of gets you to think, because especially when you get to the advanced difficulty and the master difficulty, which there is a song in here on this gameplay that has the advanced difficulty, as you're going on to the music track and doing the kind of sliding back and forth with your ship, you'll see that they do throw in enemies that you have to shoot. And so that kind of messes with your mind, especially for me, going right on when I first started doing those advanced difficulties, because you play normal when you're used to you going in the track, you move your ship left and right on the beat. You're like, oh, I can do this. You get to a section where you have to fight enemies, and you're like, oh, this is kind of, I'm getting it. You get to advanced, they start mixing that stuff together, and it makes the songs a little bit more enjoyable, and it adds a different mix to it, because it makes it to where you're playing the same songs. They're going a little bit faster, but instead of splitting the stuff up where you're shooting the enemies and then you're doing the sliding with your ship on the music, they combine them. And I feel like they do a good job of slowly introducing that to you. They don't throw that into you right away. They don't force that on you, because to get to advanced difficulty, you have to get at least 90% of the stars on normal. And in advanced to master, you have to get 100% of the stars on normal and advanced. So it does require skill to actually get those two higher difficulties. And that's kind of the only real negative I have with the game, is that to get to those advanced and master difficulty songs, I get that you kind of want to make you want to have the player be really good at the game, because obviously those are higher difficulties. But the ability to unlock those songs, I feel like there's a little bit too much to it. I feel like 90% to get of the stars Feels like a lot. And once you get into advanced, you've been playing for so long, especially if not by the end, that you've got the momentum with you. You kind of figured everything out. You figured out the timing. You figured out how you're supposed to do everything. But if you're not getting the necessary stars, you kind of have to go back and play them. And replaying them on advanced difficulty, like I said, is great because they combine the shooting and the actual ship flying on the tracks. Whereas in normal, you don't have that combination as much. I feel like normal, especially when you start out, you feel like it's pretty tough. You feel like getting a hang of it is going to take a while. But as you get to the end and you get to the boss fights, which I'm not going to spoil any of those because there's only 3, and I feel like they do a good job of handling those boss fights. But by the time you get to the end of the game and the last few songs, you feel like you can do that advanced difficulty. Maybe not the master, but you can do the advanced. And for me personally, going from normal to advanced, I was able to handle the advanced songs relatively easily, especially the early ones. So like when I started out with normal, you start out, I was getting 3, maybe 4 stars on some of those. I got to advanced, and those same songs, I could get 5 stars on them. So I feel like that's the only negative I have, because the actual gameplay itself, the shooting sometimes, that's the part that takes the most getting used to, is figuring out how to put the reticle on them, because sometimes it's hard to tell if you've actually put the reticle on them, if you actually locked on, because the lock-on reticle is red, and sometimes enemies will shoot out mines, which are also red, or homing mines, which are also red. So sometimes it's difficult to figure out if you're actually going to hit those or not. But the actual gameplay itself, I feel like the music, the way that they combine the music and the gameplay, it actually feels like you're going on inside of a music track. I just think the actual controls and the gameplay itself, with it being, left stick, right trigger as your basically your buttons and your sticks, it feels good. It feels like people can jump into that and kind of enjoy it and ride along with the music. The only thing I would change would be the ability to unlock those other 2 difficulties, because I feel like they kind of put those behind a little bit too much, and it requires a little too much work for some of the people who may not stay long enough to do it. But I would actually recommend this game as a person who's really big into rhythm games, and someone who likes shooters, but also it's a rail shooter they call it, but you do have a little bit free movement, as you can see, and I just think they handle the gameplay really well. So I would recommend it. I want to say thank you guys for listening. I hope I can put up some more video reviews in the relatively near future. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and have a good one.